I drove field cuts through my neighborhood.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fiercely Authentic. I'm your host, Lucky, and I have some wonderful ladies with me today, and I'm going to bring them right on. And here's Kay.
Hey there.
And here's Mel. And
Hi.
I'm so excited to have you guys here today. You guys have your own podcast that we met over on the Twitterverse or the X, whatever they're calling it now. But you guys have your own podcast, and I was like, wow, we really need to unite forces and get the ladies together. And so, do you want to give a introduction briefly, whatever you're willing to publicly share about yourself?
Where are we going first? Will I kick off?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm Kay, or at least that's my ex name, Authentic Turf. And I met Mel for the first time virtually like 3-4 months ago or something. We started following each other and got to know each other a bit. And here we are. Basically, I kind of crash landed into this debate that I found myself in quite accidentally, quite unprovoked. But here I am, because things spiraled pretty quickly, as they do when you dip your toe into this water. So I now spend my life arguing with people on Twitter and trying to get my voice heard as a gender critical woman. And that comes from a place of knowledge, a place of life experience around surgeries and hormones and all that kind of thing. And that's the reason why I kind of open my eyes to a lot of the things that are going on that Mel and I talk about on our podcast. But Mel is the brains behind everything. She does she takes care of everything for our show. I just show up when I'm told and talk. So she can tell you a little bit more about how she got set up with her podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to have you, Kay, in the podcast that I had. But how did I start my podcast? I started my podcast because I was doing a little bit of stand-up back in 2018. It's something I had always wanted to do, like a bucket. And boy, I got to say, I wish when I had moved to LA over 20 years ago, I had just gone straight for stand-up, because I think I would have kept with it. But as like a married person and being older, like I'm not going to tour. I'm not going to be at a club every night. I mean, I tried for like a second, and it's like, you can't, no. So it's more of like a hobby or whatever. But in that, and being such a fan of comedy and seeing the podcast thing, I'm thinking like, well, I can do that. Now, it's not great that I don't have an existing audience, like, a known comic would, but I don't care. I make the show for my own pleasure. It's sort of like, I moved to LA to be an actor, and then I was in a band and trying to be a singer, and all of those things have so many gatekeepers. And I was never good at getting through the gates for whatever reason. And so this is perfect for me. I can do it all myself, and there's nobody to tell me no, except for the censors. So yeah, that's where my podcast came from. Just wanted to copy other people. Looked like they were having some fun.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great. I mean, like it's impressive at like how many people now have podcasts, and like just the connections that are happening. And but then on the other end of it, we get that censorship that happens, and I think that's a really dangerous road that we're going down. I mean, I've been censored on on this platform on YouTube several times. They've come after me. They've come after me on Twitter before, like talking about certain things that happened in the last few years before it became more, okay to speak about certain things. Well, Kay, you were just censored, weren't you, on Twitter as well?
Yes, I'm currently in Twitter prison. I've got, I think, 2.5 days left on my sentence. And then I will be back with a motherfucking pop because I've got beef. I've got beef with a few people. So yeah, that should be fun. So Saturday night, folks, I don't know what time it is where you are, but look out for that re-entry into X or Twitter or whatever the fuck, because yeah, it's going to be a biggie. But the thing is, Lucky, I can't help myself. You know, I'm a scrapper. I was born this way. I've always been a fighter all my life. To be honest, it's my fighting streak.
It's your
superpower.
superpower.
Alive today, you know, it took me to, yeah, exactly. It is my superpower. I wouldn't be here if I weren't a fighter like this. And so, yeah, I think when you're kind of as bold as I am, I think there's a bit of stupidity within it as well, you know, because I was quite naive when I stepped into this, but because my natural personality is to question things, challenge things, push back, argue, debate, make people's lives hell if that's what's required. Yeah, I've kind of nominated myself for that role, and a lot of people seem to be right behind me. So that's encouraging. But yeah, it's been really sweet in browse mode on Twitter, you know, and I'm reading all my girls sticking up for me. I'm like, yes, because they're coming for me in my absence, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's really cool to see so many people standing up for me. So I've got a lot of gratitude for them and a lot of thank yous to be given out when I come back. So I can't wait.
I can't wait because I remember you put out what got me, like, I came across something on Twitter that was yours, and I think it was like something that you wrote to Kelly Cadigan or something, and you were just like, and it was like a really long, you know, you do like the long form kind of like threads,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it was like, and it was just like, and if you were like, you know, if you're gonna be offended by this, then just like, you know, just block me or unfollow me now. And I was just like, this is giving you a follow. My gosh, thank you. You know, because it's just, there's so many people that are just so thin-skinned and that can't take anything, and just like the obsessive, like childish name calling, it is just a constant. And then I'm like, really? Can you guys at least like get a better script? Like, can you get more creative with your insults? Because they really suck. Like it's always the same thing.
This is it. I love manufacturing some creative insults. It's a special skill of mine, you know. So I think that's why I like to brandish them whenever possible. But you know, I do tend to write at length when I'm tweeting, because the things that I'm saying are considered, they're thought through, right? And there's a lot of layers to what we're fighting. So sometimes when you just send out some brain fart into the void, you know, just to get people arguing in your threads, I don't see the point in that. I'd rather explain fully where I'm coming from with what I've got to say. But I encourage people regularly to unfollow me. You know, I do it about once a month, because I'll get I'll get a couple of thousand newbies, and then I feel like I go back to square one with trying to make my impression, because I'll have some stragglers that pop in, new people, and they're like, oh, well, I disagree with you. So I think what I'm going to do is fight you on that. And I'm like, but I'm not interested in fighting you on that. This is my channel. This is what I'm saying. If you don't fucking like it, you just press the button. There we go. The misery is gone from your life. You know, you never have to see my face again. So unfollow me. And then people who love to hate me perceive that, or like to kind of twist that into me being highly sensitive and can only handle people agreeing with me. Now, if that were the case, would I be out there saying the things that I say? You know, if I really just wanted everyone to agree with me, I have been abused in every imaginable way over these past 6 months. I don't do it for sport. I do it because it's necessary, and I feel bold enough to do it, you know, but I couldn't do it without everyone behind me, you know, so I need good people on my side. I can't be bothered with these, you know, people who try to blindside you with some absolutely irrelevant protesting. And I'm like, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm not talking about that. Why are you trying to pull me into a debate that I'm not opening up here, you know? So when I say something on Twitter, you know, my advice to people would be, read the damn tweet, read every single word of it. If you don't understand it, ask me a question. or if you think that my mind could be opened up to something that I'm not already aware of, tell me about it. But don't come in with all your bullshit. But, you know, let's not go back to square one with the bigot, transphobe, fascist stuff. It's like, no, I did that 6 months ago. That was my introduction to this. I do not care about the names anymore. I don't care. You're not going to stop me talking because you call me some names. So do you have anything better? Because if not, what can you do? You can fuck off. It's really it's really simple.
It's so empowering though too. I feel like it's so empowering when we're just like, I don't care what you fucking call me anymore. Like I've been called all these things. What?
Yeah.
What? Like what you really you really do you want a list of all the transsexual people that I interact with on a daily basis that are my friends? And then they'll compare it. They'll be like, oh, that's like saying you have a black friend, so you're not racist.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, this is not what that is. Okay. This is not the same thing. If I was such a transphobe, then why would I have people in my life that are freaking transsexuals? My best friend is a transsexual, but guess what? They're rooted in reality. They know they like it's either you're rooted in reality or you aren't. And that's my deciding factor as to whether or not you are like, if I'm gonna like take the time to interact with you. You know what I mean? Like it's really super basic. If you are going, and I will, if you have socially transitioned and you physically are, presenting as the opposite gender, and you are putting in the effort and you're rooted in reality, I'm going to respect you because you're being respectful of me and you're being respectful of me as a woman, and you're not trying to like erase women or men, in the same way. So like, but if you are not rooted in reality and you want to like act as though like name calling and just being ignorant on the internet is going to get you somewhere, then we're not gonna get along, and we're not gonna have a conversation that's worth anything. Like that's just
no. Do you not find though that often, because I have quite a few trans followers as well, and they're all people that are completely based. They know what they are. They know that their sex is immutable. They chose to present themselves in the world in a certain way, and they are not asking anything of me. They're not asking me to open up my spaces for them. They're not asking me to, they're not waterboarding me into saying we're the same, right? So I have respect for these people, and it's really encouraging to receive messages from them, when I'm getting annihilated by really bad eggs that are representing the trans community. And often it's these white virtue signally type, it's like just
there's a certain demographic.
Go away. Yeah.
There is a certain one.
But yeah, I feel exactly the same as you. I don't have in my personal life a lot of connections with trans people, simply because I live in the arse end of nowhere in the middle of Scotland, right? There's more sheep around me than there are humans. So I don't have all that many connections. And when you're rural as well, when you add in the element, aside from being very respectful of genuine based trans people, when you add in the element of social contagion, it hasn't quite hit here where I am, so a lot of what I'm taking in about the world around me, I'm seeing it online, or I'm hearing it from, ladies like yourselves in bigger places where you're surrounded by it. But yeah, a based transsexual, that's fine. That's
my ally.
You live your life. I'm absolutely fine with you. That is not my problem. But what I find is when these trans individuals who want to argue and do all the name calling come at you, they come at you with this really incredibly offensive stuff, right? And they seem to think it's all about us not wanting to share the bathroom with them. And it's like there's about 100,000 other things going on that's not okay. I really am. And actually, where you pee is quite far down my list of problems. Like if you look like a woman and no one questions you and no one challenges you.
Because the transsexuals that are using the same restroom as us are trying to, the whole point of being a transsexual is to blend into society. It is not to expose yourself. That would be an embarrassment for them to be exposed as not having the female genitalia in a female bathroom. That would be like horrifying for them. And that's that's the difference between a true transsexual and these, you know, autogyophilias, you know, like that are doing things and exposing themselves. And that's the big difference. And so I always like to point out too that like you're hurting the actual people, the actual transsexual community by doing this. You are hurting the transsexual community. And like, you know, and it is inherently transphobic to be doing that, because you are hurting that community that you are saying that you are an ally to. So like, you know, it's like when you turn it back on them, they're just like, like they don't know what to do.
Yeah, and do you not think if you just bring into it, you know, everyone's debating for years and years, we've been debating about how we figure out who pees where, you know, what would be fair, what doesn't hurt everyone's feelings, who do we sacrifice to make this work, right? And it's like, why did common decency go completely out the window? You know, if you're a trans woman and you blend in, you pass, no one ever challenges you, you're not getting funny looks, no one seems offended when you're sharing their airspace, then I would take that as your sign that you're doing okay, right? If you are walking into women's spaces with your dick and balls swinging around and a woman makes it very clear, and she doesn't even have to be verbal, but, you know, read the room, guys, right? If you're making women uncomfortable when you enter their spaces, take that as your cue to get out and stay out. You're not welcome, you know? And so surely anyone, a trans identifying male, even if they really do believe that they're a woman, if they're causing that much upset within society, can't they just back it up a little bit? You know, I've never imposed myself like that in any kind of social situation, you know, like take like, just take the hint. You're
dominant. It's very domineering.
You know? Yeah, it is. It is. It's abusive in my eyes to continue behaving that way. Yeah.
The point is the abuse. That's the whole point. You know what I was thinking this entire time is like, we need a better all-encompassing term, because I don't even, just hearing everything that you both just said, it's not even a trans thing, and it's not even a gender thing, because I don't even think gender is real. So like, wipe that word off the fucking table.
I try not to use it. It's
reality based, you know, it's based on reality and decency, you know, perversion, and I don't know what else. I don't know what the word should be, but it's like they almost still get away with it because we're gender critical. Like, we're critical of something that's real and should be valid, and no, it's not real and it shouldn't be fucking valid. And like, that's what I was just thinking, that we need a new term that's not confusing.
That's not, like, we're not gender critical because we don't believe in gender, right?
That's right.
Like, I tell people that, I'm like, I don't believe in that. Like, so like when they start talking about genders and stuff, I'm like, listen, there is like 117 different genders and I don't believe in that. So like when I'm talking about things, I say sex based, you know what I mean? Your sex isn't assigned at birth. Your sex happens at conception. That is determined at conception, before your parents even know that they're even going to have that the mother is going to have a pregnancy. That is determined. Your sex is determined then. It depends on, you know, like where a woman is at her cycle, because I did you know, I'm a mom, so like I did you know, family planning stuff. So like I would track my ovulation schedule, and like I know that like you are more likely to have a female in your womb if it's like before your ovulation time, but if it's right on ovulation time, you're more likely to have a male. So like I was really like heavy into this stuff. Like you can record with your temperature, with your
something would have to program those cells, so that makes sense. It's the hormones that are programming the cells to choose which thing. And it's, if these people would use their brains for even a second and look at those, I mean, we have the technology now to show all of like conception and the growth of the fetus and the embryo and all of those things, and the cell division and all of that. Every single cell in your body is one or the other.
Yep.
Every cell. So that just goes on to, you know, elevate what you're saying, because it's
It's
really
it's based
every
in
cell
fact.
of your body.
But then, when you talk about that, when you talk about the immutability of our sex and talk about our chromosomes and all of these things, as if we should even be having this argument, but we entertain it, don't we? Because that's the state of the world. You talk about that, and then the tras who are coming at you will come out with things about, well, what about intersex people?
And I'm friends with 2 intersex people, actually. And so
what about them?
I'll tag them into the things and be like, oh my gosh, so here you go. You're being used again.
Yeah, everyone is used. Everyone is appropriated, including intersex people who are perfectly fine living within these binaries. They're fine with who they are. They have an identity. They're not confused, right? You cannot use them as your excuse to talk absolute bullshit. You can't do that, I'm not buying it.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And then I'll be like, oh, really? Well, I have 2 friends who are intersex, and no, they do not like being used. They don't want to be on the flag. So, do not do that. Don't pull people into this and just use them. And that is a genetic mutation. That is not the norm. It is extremely rare. It's a very rare, it's the fact that I know 2 intersex people is amazing, because most people they even until I first met my first transsexual friend of mine, I don't know, it was probably 15 to 16, 18, somewhere in there years ago. And I thought they were a unicorn because you just didn't meet transsexual people, because they were just so rare. And now it's well, with the internet and everything like that and all the connections that I've made online, I know a lot more, but still it's a very small number of people. But they're cast aside. They're called transphobic. They're called TERFs. They're called everything. Everyone is just using everybody for throwing them under the bus and just constantly.
Yeah. One that really kind of cut me deep. It was one that really, put me in a bit of a spin for 5 minutes until I composed my comeback. But there's some dude now. I wish I could remember his name. I would need to go and look through my old TikToks and stuff to remember. But this character, this trans woman who has male genitalia remaining, looks very much male, pops on a bit of lippy for effort, and has quite a big following on TikTok, talking about things like how they have a bit of a penchant for younger women, and talking about really sexual stuff, while bragging about how well endowed they are. And within the same video is telling us all about the fact that they're lesbian, right? So I challenged this person, and one of their comebacks to me was, how am I any different? So just because I can't have a baby, I'm not a woman. And I was like, I didn't say anything about that. It's more your dick and balls that I was concentrating on. But, it's got nothing to do with the fact that you can't have a baby. And it's don't you dare appropriate women who choose not to have a child, who can't have a child for some reason, who have struggled with miscarriage, who have tried for years and years to conceive. And I'm a woman who's had a radical hysterectomy, right? So when this asshole tries to compare himself to being just as much of a woman as I am because they don't have a uterus, that's extremely offensive. That's extremely offensive, and that was part of my fuel as well in the early days, was speaking up for women who have had complications like that. You chop off someone's leg, it doesn't mean they're not a human anymore, even though humans usually have 2 legs. It's a person who lost their leg. It's not, nobody changed,
Yeah.
And I'm tired of that. People's health conditions, people's race, people's sexuality, people's intersex status, all of this being abused. It's so disgraceful, and these people are completely protected while they do that. They just offend and insult everybody around them, and they're completely protected in doing that.
Do you guys think,
You guys?
do you guys women, do you guys think that do you think it's possible that there are people inside the movement that are plants from the other side? Because what the fuck is the whole debacle that happened the other day?
That's
Like,
me.
why would you be trying to take down, like, there's no other, it's either your ego, you're just an insane person that wants to be like, I'm the one who's doing this. Well, you're not fucking doing anything, because I literally never heard of you until this went down. But anyway, go on with your fucking big bad ego. But there's no other excuse other than that, or that they are on the other side and they are infiltrating from the inside. Because those spaces that I spoke about, Twitter spaces that were feminist Twitter spaces that I went into, the things that were said back to me were so bizarre. And I was like, whoa. Like, I need to rethink everything about what I came in here with. And I did rethink it all. And I still feel like I was right. So I then it made me start to second guess these people. Like,
Oh, I
Well,
absolutely.
I don't know how specific I want to get, but it's a little fishy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's definitely people pushing an agenda, and people switching sides and having like burner accounts and like all of that. Like, it's unless basically if they're a verified account, I think it's less likely. You know what I mean? Because who's going to pay for an extra verified account? You know what I mean? Maybe, I guess, if you really are that, how dedicated to this are you? You know? But
well,
yeah,
I think what happened, just to answer Mel's query, I think I was subjected to what's known as a purity spiral. Okay, so these radical feminists who I've never, I was connected to a handful of them, but not that closely. I was just aware of them. And I think what happened was, it was like, I said something that wasn't feminist enough, right? So I'm the wrong type of feminist, even though I've never really changed course with any of my opinions. I've never actually gone back on myself, or
you're like the wrong type of woman for them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not womaning the right way. Like,
yeah. So essentially, because I was accused of putting a lot of pressure onto a young woman that I retweeted. Okay, that was kind of how it started. I retweeted a young lady who was expressing gratitude to a very large business, global business, for representing her and her double mastectomy scars. Okay. Now, if you've known me for 5 minutes, you will know that I am actually a very compassionate person. Okay. But if she had posted her picture without the highly insensitive and irresponsible message, I wouldn't have retweeted her. Okay. I would have just thought, poor soul, a victim of gender ideology, but actually, no, part of what I'm here to do is to get rid of the assault on the next generation of vulnerable women. Okay. That I put kids first, always. Kids before women, always. And if you're a grown woman who can't do that, we're not on the same page at all, right? So while they're figuring out that I'm not pro-women enough because I highlighted a grown adult female behaving in an irresponsible manner, I got piled on by the purity virtue signalers. Okay, so I was every phobic, every ist, every ism, right? I went through, my bingo dabber was out. It was a full house, okay? And the way that the hysteria was very quickly generated, and then suddenly we find ourselves an hour later and they've been digging through my timeline trying to find literally anything, right? And then some of the people that jumped in to pile on, it's like, dude, you come at me for every gender critical view I've ever held. Are you trying to convince me that you're all part of the same team? Because if you are, why are you associated with one another? It's like someone coming at me to claim that they're a far more evolved feminist and far better at womening than I am, while they're buddying up to bully me with someone who is blatantly a shit-stirring trans rights activist. And it's like, you're not very good at covering your tracks, ladies. We can all see what's happening. And so those bitches, because that's what they are, that was the other thing I've been dragged for, but those fucking bitches, they were all coming at me And every person behind me was saying, you know, I've had them blocked for months or years, you know, congratulations, you've been sock femmed. So yeah, that was interesting. But I can read everything. Like, I really think these people think I am stupid, right? I really think that they think that I am stupid, and that eventually they'll catch me out on my stupidity and I'll stop talking. But I'm not stupid, so I'm going to keep talking, and it must infuriate them, but I don't care. It's like fucking blood through my veins, infuriating these people, you know. So I'll keep doing it. Yeah. Was that too much?
No.
I think it's empowering that you can do that, because some people get like, it gets under their skin and they are just like, oh my God, I can't handle it. And at first, like the first few times, like, you know, like you're called a transphobe or a bigot or freaking whatever, right? You're like, oh, like, whoa, what? I'm not those things. Like, what do you mean? You feel like you have to defend yourself. And then you just get to the point, you're like, okay, I know who I'm talking to now.
Yeah.
Thank you for identifying yourself. It's like a badge, you know? It's like if I'm not called a transphobe at least 3 times on Twitter in a day, I'm like, I'm slacking, okay?
Yeah.
I'm slacking.
Get to work.
I'm like, because I'm not even saying anything that's offensive. I'm not against anybody. I'm just like, I'm based in reality. And that's just like where that's where the truth lies. Like, I don't understand how, like, up until like 5 minutes ago, everything was like, you know, we just knew, you know what I mean? Like, I always knew that there was transsexuals in the world. Like, yeah, okay. And there was cross dressers, and there was people that, like, you know, like I was a tomboy growing up. Like, I never fit into like gender roles. Like, okay, it's no big deal. Does that mean I'm non-binary? No. Like, what the fuck is non-binary? Like, how could you not be either one? Are you an alien? Like, I don't understand it. And then I try to ask about it, and then I get my head ripped off for not understanding. And I'm like, well, I guess if you can't explain it to me and you can't make it make sense to somebody that, you know, is truthful and is based in reality, then I guess what you're talking about is something that is an ideology that I don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to it. Like if that's your religious belief, then you could have that religious belief, but just acknowledge that not everybody's going to have to believe that. And not everybody's going to accept that. Like, it's the force of everything. It's the force belief of like, you have to believe in this, or you are, or that equals this. And it's like, that's not how the world works, honey. That's just not how the world works. And like, if you go out into mainstream, like you were saying, Kay, like, you know, in your neck of the woods, like you probably would be hard. Like, people would probably be like, what are you talking about? Like, if you talked about any of this, like I talked to like my neighbors and stuff about it. I'm like, yeah, this is what's going. And because I call it like my reality check. Like, I just kind of go, okay, well, here's the thing. This is what I found on Twitter, and this is what's happening. And they'll just look at me like, oh my gosh, like it's insane. Until it's not insane to the rest of the regular world, I know that I'm on the right track, you know, because I'm like, I can't believe some of the things that they come up with. I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, there was a oh, I have a clip. Let me pull up a clip for you. Oh God, you're this person wants to know if they're a lesbian, if anyone will ever see them as a lesbian. I want to get your opinions on this.
I already know the answer.
It's you know, I don't understand. Like, I'm even told, like, you know, I'm part of the LGBT community. I have been, you know, for decades now, but yet somehow I'm even told that I'm not part of that community. I don't know how they get to determine that, or like, you know, if there's some kind of credentials that I'm supposed to have, but you know, like,
well,
I'm told that all the time.
You know what she doesn't have? She doesn't have her special badge.
No, I know you
You
really do
didn't?
need a special badge.
Yeah.
Just
Oh, you
just
have
be
to.
non-binary and don't change anything or do anything because it's the same anyway. So just there you go. Special badge.
I don't want a special fucking badge. Fuck, I want to get something that says "fuck your special badge." Can we make like, can we get pins that say that "fuck your special badge"? Like, I feel like we need that.
Oh God. I purposely haven't clicked play
Dear
on
God.
this when I've seen it pop up in my feed. So I'm excited to watch it with the two of you. At least I have moral support for whatever trauma I'm about to experience.
I know.
He looks like an Oompa Loompa. He's got a hairstyle like an Oompa Loompa from Willy Wonka.
It is.
Is he
Oh my
trying to look like he just escaped from the fucking loony bin? Is that the
There's a bit of Aphex Twin energy coming through here. Yeah.
You know, Lucky, you saw my most recent. I swear to God, I really just want all of these people to have makeup. If we have to live in this fucking world, can they all at least like look cute? Like, I will help with that. I really will.
Oh my gosh, I was telling all the transsexuals in a spaces yesterday. I was hanging out with them, and I'm like, you know, it used to be that the transsexuals, like, I used to work at IHOP, which Mel, you probably know what that is,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a breakfast, you know, breakfast restaurant type thing. International House of Pancakes, you know.
Yep.
So I worked there like, you know, like 20 years ago. Oh my gosh. And I worked third shift as a waitress, and like, you know, I would get the bar rush of people after the bars closed, you know what I mean? Like the whole rush of people the drunk people that needed food. And the transsexuals that would come in, I would always get beauty tips and like everything from them because they are so fucking fantastic at like knowing how to, like, you know, shave your leg, get your legs. I would be like, how do you get your legs so smooth? And like, how do you do that makeup? And like, they were the best. They knew how to do all of it because I'm like tomboy, like just trying to be trying to figure out girlhood, you know, like womanhood as a young lady, you know, and they had it all down. Like I got all kinds of tips and stuff from them.
Oh yeah. Well, like RuPaul, I remember finding out like how to keep your makeup on all night. I mean, RuPaul doesn't eat or drink anything, you know, like the whole lipstick routine. I mean, they have tips and tricks if they're serious. And RuPaul's obviously not trans, but I just mean someone who's trying to present a certain whatever, whether it's drag or being, you know,
it's so weird how they're always confused too. Like they take people that do drag and they're like, they act as though that they're trans people, and that's not the same thing. That's not, like, I've helped put on drag shows, I've, you know, and that's a freaking adult only thing. Oh my God. Yeah. I don't even want to. All right, let me play this.
Yeah, let me see this guy.
Hello. Well, I kind of have this question too. So, well, a few of my followers, my lesbian followers, please let me know. Will a lesbian ever find me attractive? Because I call myself a lesbian and I'm a woman who loves women, so will you find me attractive, or will some lesbian find me attractive? I don't know. Let me know. Thank you.
So these dudes just think that lesbians have horrible taste. That's what they think a lesbian is. They think that that's.
I honestly, all I can take from that is that was a message going out to God knows how many people. I don't know how far that video circulated, right? But we're essentially, he's fishing for some absolute idiot who is really confused about all of this, and who would be stupid enough to kind of buy what he's selling. You know, that's precisely what's going on here.
Yeah,
like, I can't speak for lesbians. I'm a heterosexual woman. I cannot speak for lesbians. But the thing is, I have spoken for lesbians. You know, I've nominated myself many, many times. in the recent past to speak out against this kind of stuff. It's so revolting. It's so abusive.
He's a fucking predator, and like extremely mentally challenged, possibly. Like, someone help this person. How does he feed himself, and does he have a job? Like, what else is going on? On what planet is that hair on purpose? Like, just too many things are happening.
It's not kind to affirm somebody's beliefs in something that they, you know what I mean? Like, it's really not a kind thing to lie to people and to tell somebody that it's feeling this way, that's really looking for that, you know, like for that person or that those people to just like, you know, he wants that. Obviously he wants to feel that way and everything. And people have probably lied to him into this delusion. Like I don't feel like we should be doing that to people. I think it's cruel. I think it's really cruel, and it's really setting people up for like rejection and having a really hard life. You know, it's really, it's not a kind thing to do to people. And I think that lying to him and saying, oh yeah, of course you're a lesbian and I'm a bisexual woman. No, I would never. No, you're not a woman to me. And you know, you're not trying to be feminine. Like, just because you feel like you are something doesn't mean that you are something. And
so several months ago I responded to another person of a similar nature. It was a trans identifying male who considered themselves to be a lesbian called Ali, and they were letting the world around them know that they were embarking on their journey as a lesbian, right? So I had something to say about that, so I responded. Now in his threads it was just affirmation, like everyone validating this bullshit, right?
It's so cruel.
Including the pretend. But the thing is, they've got plants, don't they? Like we were talking about earlier, right? So there's all these lesbians, cis lesbians, popping up out of the woodworks to affirm this and say, well, I absolutely would go out with Ali and I would call that a lesbian relationship. And it's like, okay, covert tra, like we're not stupid, right? Anyway, I pushed back against Ali, you know, just matched the energy, because that's how I started. I used to be a lot nicer than I am today. And the response was that I'm all the bullshit that we're used to by now, but also that I had encouraged my many thousands of followers to send death threats to Ali, right? And I'm like, can you show me some receipts, Ali? Because I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. Like, nobody following me. I'm not inciting violence. I'm just highlighting that you're not a lesbian because of your dick and balls. That's, you know, I'm just highlighting where you're crossing boundaries for a lot of women. You know, can you see us all talking about how you're actually crossing boundaries and you're being quite abusive and this is not okay, and we're letting you know now at this young age before you ruin your entire life with having stupid people around you validating what you're saying, you know. No, that's not the same as sending death threats. I never got the receipts, but that's how low they will go, is to try and, again, it comes back to me just not being stupid. I can read people like a book, you know, but for someone who is a bit more gentle, cautious with their approach to things, to be told that they're responsible for someone receiving death threats is terrifying, you know. It's like, how dare these motherfuckers? They just say anything at all. It doesn't matter how harmful it is. They just say it to shut you down.
The same community is constantly telling kids that if they do not get to transition, that they will kill themselves. Like, they're constantly telling them that same exact thing. This is the same group of people that are constantly saying, well, if they don't affirm you, then you're going to want to do this. and this is going to be the result. And I think it's abusive to say that to people.
Yeah.
I don't think people should be giving death threats. I don't think people should be telling kids that if they don't get affirmation or treatment, or adults even, that they're going to, like, you know, that they're going to kill themselves. I don't think that that's okay to do. I think that's really manipulative. You're planting seeds into kids' little heads, and like that's wrong. It's like, is that what you want to happen? Do you want, you know, why would you say that to a child?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It floors me.
Yeah.
That absolutely floors me.
Yeah, when I first started to learn about these things, you know, being set, a lot of the grooming that was going on, because there's so many layers to this all, isn't there? There's so many layers, and one thing opens another thing, and you know, you could be exploring all of the layers forever and ever. But when I first started to look at, you know, the grooming element within all of this, you know, I went through a little chapter of feeling a lot of disdain for the parents of trans kids, right? For obvious reasons. I'm a mother. I can't imagine abusing my own child in that way. But then you peel back the next layer and it's like, oh, fuck, some of these parents had no control. Some of this was happening in that child's school. You know, the parents finding out after they've already been socially transitioned. What the hell is going on? You know, and this is... it's been coming up a lot recently, and I was sitting in a Twitter space earlier, and some people did touch on this, and Mel and I haven't held back from talking about it on our show. But, you know, there's a lot of conspiracies around who's in charge here. What is this agenda? You know, who is reveling in the fact that social contagion has taken hold, and we're all doing this to each other. We're all fighting this way. We're all tearing each other down over something so damn stupid. You know, who is it that's sitting back just lapping all of this up and enjoying having their pockets lined? And we've talked about that a few times, but there's just too much. And as long as they've got people fighting each other, the agenda is easier to achieve, isn't it? So it's just, you know, I see it from all sides, and I'm happy to be called all these names and be told that I'm just a hateful, intolerant person, because it's bigger than you. It's bigger than your feelings. It's bigger than you thinking that your right to pee beside me is the biggest thing going on. You know,
it's far greater than that. It is.
Yeah.
It really is. It's far greater. Like if you look at just like some of the issues with, like, you know, like with the puberty blockers alone, like just that rabbit hole. I went down that and I'm like, holy shit. No, I had no idea that was exactly the drug that they used to sexually castrate pedophiles. That they used it for women with endometriosis, and then they had bone issues. They had teeth falling out. They had, you know, like there's thousands within the FDA. You know, the U.S. government. There's thousands of lawsuits against that stuff. And then, like, you know, in the UK, Tavistock. I mean, like the entire clinic, like, so they're going to be doing the same kind of research that they were doing. I forget what it's called. Oh my gosh, I just totally drew a blank. Where they're basically investigating the whole entire thing. They're going to be doing that in the US now too. And like, so that's what closed, you know, it. Oh my gosh, I forget what kind of investigation it is, but basically, you know, like it's a very thorough thing, as long as there aren't people tipping it. You know what I mean? Is it going to be done properly? Who knows?
No, you know? Not. Did you know this is another reason why I'm in this fight, Lucky, is I've been on Lupron, right? I spent 8 or 9 months of my life on that drug quite recently. And so I know the devastating effects that it has. Okay. So for anyone who isn't familiar with me or my story, right? Just to catch you up about why I'm so bold with the things I have to say about puberty blockers, right? I've been on the damn drugs. I was 35 years old. This drug was given to me simply as a means to shut down my natural menstrual cycle, okay? So it shut down all of my ovarian function very quickly, okay? It takes 2 cycles on average. So you have like monthly injections. Usually it can be administered in different ways, but you know, first injection, side effects hit me straight away. I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. By the 2nd month, that was when my menstrual cycle stopped. Okay, so the drug had done its job, and then it had to be topped up monthly, and then I moved on to 3 monthly injections, like bigger doses. Okay, it doesn't matter, you know, the whole hows and whys of me being put on that drug and having my hysterectomy, we'll save that for another podcast, right? But Lupron, within 4 weeks of my first injection, I had to take 2 sticks to walk from my car into my office. Now, I'm an ex-dancer, an ex-swimmer, very fit and healthy, you know, extremely active. So I needed 2 canes to walk a really short distance because it felt like my bones were crumbling, okay? My hips, specifically on my wrists and ankles, it was really, really painful. You know, gripping a cup or lifting something heavy was suddenly very painful. It was like being an old lady, okay? I had, let me think what else, my skin, unbelievably itchy. You know, I was clawing all of my skin off. You know, menopausal women will talk about, you know, itchy skin or itchy ears because of their estrogen dropping. Well, this was, you know, I was clawing at my skin until it bled, okay? What else? I don't think I suffered with headaches and things like that, which is quite common. No, really, it was the pain. And then as a woman who was still very much in my prime, I still am, we're just talking a few years ago, the sudden elimination of those hormones in my system meant that I had no memory at all, you know, truly no memory, nothing was retained whatsoever. I was constantly fatigued, but I also couldn't sleep. So I would be up all night, just like a menopausal woman complains about, right? She can't sleep, or she's up several times through the night. I was like that, but then I would spend all day too fatigued to do anything. So of course, when you get into that cycle, the depression hits, right? Plus the drug does that to you anyway. And because of the medical condition that I had, my brain responses to being injected with this poison was terrible. So I had shocking panic attacks, you know, anxiety that had me literally rocking back and forth. Like it was like a real psychiatric breakdown. Okay. This was maybe by 3 or 4 months in. And the reason I was given this drug was to essentially practice menopause, because I ended up having my ovaries removed. Okay. So I was put on this drug basically to see if my body could handle being in early surgically induced menopause. Right. I didn't want the drug, but they wouldn't allow me to have my necessary surgery unless I put myself through that. Okay.
What?
So I put myself through it. Yeah. So this
Even
is
though
it, right? So a kid
so
can
you
be
needed
handed
the
out with stuff.
surgery.
Say
You
again?
needed the surgery. You needed the surgery, but
Yeah.
they made you take this drug to prove that you're. But you needed the surgery. Like so, like you. That doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense to me.
So because my surgery would have been technically elective, although my periods were destroying my life, right? I had something called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is really an incredibly difficult illness to live with. Okay, so essentially I was very ill every single luteal phase of every single cycle. So for about 2 weeks of every month, I was very unwell, right, to the point of not being able to function. Okay. And it is a brain response to hormone fluctuations, right? But because the hormones fluctuate from the mechanics of the reproductive system, the only way to stop this brain response is to switch that off. Okay. So I was given the drug to switch it off, but that nobody took into account the fact that because of my illness, my brain was responding terribly to Lupron, right? My brain was responding very badly to the crashing estrogen, to suddenly having no hormones in my otherwise healthy body, right? So, but the thing is, when I had my surgery, my hysterectomy and ovaries gone, I was allowed to take HRT. So none of those things were hurting me anymore. You know, I was allowed to take estrogen to feel well, but I wasn't allowed any of these hormones while I was on the Lupron, okay? And no child is going to be given same-sex hormones while on Lupron. They might start on cross-sex hormones while on Lupron, making it, I can only imagine, 100 times worse than what I endured. Yeah, we're just dishing this out to teenagers, right? So I did get my surgery in the end, and then I did get my HRT, and then my life improved in every imaginable way. But because I was only 35 and my ovaries still did their job, right? Basically what I was told was, you know, it wouldn't be ethical for us to voluntarily remove organs from your body that are healthy. You know, there's no cancer there. So it would be silly, you know, and you're still young enough to have a child. What if you change your mind? I'm like, no, I've completed my family. I don't need any of that additional.
All these things that they don't say to these teenagers.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so I'm 35. My gynecologist had a conversation with my husband to ask what his opinion was of me having a hysterectomy, right? I was a 35-year-old woman that had already completed my family and was begging for a hysterectomy. And a 12 or 13-year-old can just have that option completely eliminated, never to return. She is infertile for life.
And at a young age where you don't have your brain's not even developed.
Exactly. So you can understand why I'm so passionately horrified by these drugs being given to kids. It is brutal. I can actually feel tears building in my eyes, and I rarely get emotional when I'm talking about this stuff. It's so despicable to me that this poison is given to children. It destroyed my life, and thank God I had a finish line. You know, thank God I had an end line, and that was my surgery and the chance to put the hormones that I needed back into my body consistently, therefore not fluctuating, therefore my illness is gone, but so are my ovaries and my uterus. But yeah, these kids, and when they're put on blockers, we already know, Mel knows more about this than I do, but the impacts on the developing brain, you know, when kids are put on blockers, and there's a lot of information coming up now about how it stunts that development, and a lot of these kids end up with being minor attracted persons, right? Because are we still allowed to say pedophile? That's what I call it, right? But
you can, yeah.
I think because of the layers to all of this, I've started to now see even pedophilia through a different lens, because it's like, holy shit, some people are having this, you know, unwittingly put upon them, you know, because their brain development's being interfered with. It's absolutely dreadful.
I actually hadn't thought of that, and that is fucking horrible.
Well, who doesn't want somebody to go through puberty?
Oh,
who doesn't?
I know. Yeah.
So we're essentially, what is happening is that these children are not developing properly, but they are coming to age with underdeveloped bodies.
Yeah. The part I hadn't thought of was,
and then they're adults
themselves
that are children,
pedophiles.
Yeah, like adults, people who should know better,
man.
Yeah.
And I think that some of these people are really, I think their brains are being stunted from this medication. I think that there's a lot that we're not fully aware of what's happening. I had somebody on, and we ex-Lancic, we talked about, she was saying how the brain continues to develop, but it's just the parts where when you take a puberty blocker, it's stopping those hormones from being released. So like the part of your brain, like your brain is not growing at the same rate with the puberty blockers. And I'm just like, when I heard that, I was just like, oh shit. And then she was talking about how the testosterone is like carcinogenic, and you know what I mean? So what is that gonna do? You know, and then if they take the Lupron, and then, you know, like Prisha Mosley, like she talks about how, you know, her whole body, just her bones and everything hurt. And I have fibromyalgia, so like I understand, like it's a different type of pain, but I understand the widespread pain. And I've had a spinal fusion in my lower back. I had a herniated disc from a car accident. So like I have like the spine pain and the arthritis, and you know what I mean? I deal with a lot of like that kind of stuff, and like I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. And those are
much less a fucking child.
Yeah. And if only these parents knew, you know, these parents are fighting against that truth that a lot of them aren't even willing to look at, because in the other ear, they've got a doctor saying your kid's going to kill themselves if you don't do this. Oh, guys, you know, if anyone who is against our message is watching this and cannot see where we're coming from now, like, I can't keep spoon feeding people.
It's from it's from a place of compassion and love for others. It really is. Like people are like, why do you care? Because I care about the human. I care about humans. I care about humans I don't know. I care about humanity. I care, you know, I have a 19-year-old daughter, and I know that, like, I went through on my birthday actually, and I did a stream, and we'll just say that I had things I was on, you know, I had some things to help me, like, you know, tear down all my you know, my ego. And like, so I went through like my pictures as a kid, and I was like, man, I was really like a tomboy. Like, I was totally tomboy. Like, I would have been a freaking prime target for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I know that for sure, because I remember, you know, like you know, like, as I hear like the detransitioner stories, like, their stories just they tear me apart. Like, there's just nothing more than that. And people will say, oh, it's a small number. I say, no, one is too many. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, there's thousands.
Yeah.
And they say that, like, you know, it's about the 7-year kind of mark, 7 to 10, you know, that set, like, just like in a marriage, you know what I mean? You make it past the 7-year mark, you know, they say, like, you know, so like, that's about where the detransition is going to start with a lot of kids, and the numbers are going to be through the roof.
The lawsuits.
Yeah,
But
I
just the
covered
whole thing
Prisha's
is-
lawsuit, and I was in, like, holding back tears, just covering her case. Because I read through all the court documents, and it was like, I mean, it's 53 typed pages. It was a lot. And I mean, the doctors told her that she would grow a penis, and they all conspired, like, and worked against her, and then became like WPATH freaking certified, like, people after they did this. Like, these medical providers worked in tandem to convince a young lady that she needed to have a double mastectomy, and that being on those hormones was going to cure her mental health illness that they knew she was being treated for. And they told her she would grow a penis. Like, she literally thought, like, oh, I'm getting rid of these breasts that are just weight, because she was, you know, she was so I believe it was anorexic that she was. I don't know if it was anorexia or bulimia. Okay, yeah, okay. I'm like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but like, she was too sick to go and get liposuction. They wouldn't approve her for that, but they said, oh, we'll cut off your healthy breasts for you, and we'll give you testosterone. And you know, they blocked her. They blocked her puberty, and they did that to her. And these doctors worked in tandem together, and they even medically billed her double mastectomy, radical double mastectomy, as a breast reduction for insurance purposes. They, like, the letters that they did were like, they were getting the advice from her as to what to write. I mean, like, I covered her case, and I was just like, oh, I was blown away.
The medical malpractice is just, I don't understand these people. I mean, the indoctrination that's been done to them, for them to believe that this is the right thing to do. Either they believe it's the right thing to do, and they're just fucking asleep at the wheel, you know, completely indoctrinated by this ideology, or they're the first time I've ever wanted to say something is evil, because I'm just not, I don't say that. And I've been hearing that a lot, of people being like, I don't even know what else to fucking call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's these comorbidities, and it's often body dysmorphia of some type. Okay, that's then, this is where the ideology is being, you know, they've got their easy targets right there, haven't they? And you know, when I was talking earlier about my health, that condition, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, that can have onset from your first period, right? So you could be, it didn't for me, it happened to me after childbirth, so it hit me in my late 20s. But you know, girls on their first period at like 10 or 11 sometimes, they could be having these psychiatric responses to their own hormones. Okay, usually it starts a little bit later, when there's interferences from like birth control pills and stuff like that, right? Which, let's face it, are dished out like sweets. I don't know if it's like that where you guys are, but over here, it's weird for a 16-year-old girl not to be on the pill, right? Like, it's just like a standard issue thing. And nobody talks about what these drugs are actually doing to your body. They just hear I won't get pregnant. I'll have regular periods. Great.
Yeah,
Tick
they
all the
put me
boxes.
on birth control as a teenager because I have PCOS. So I had my ovaries, like, oh, I got to know them really well because I got cysts on them that would rupture when I was like 16. And like, I had to go to the emergency room. I like, oh my gosh, it was awful. And usually they just shot me up with like some drug and we're like, oh yeah, just go along, I mean? Like, the Demerol, shot a Demerol in my ass and they were like, yeah, and they put me on birth control though because of that. So like I kind of had something before where a pregnancy fixed what I had, but even though it was really hard for me to get pregnant.
That's interesting because I felt great while I was pregnant, both of my pregnancies, because I didn't have that monthly cycle. So my condition, it wasn't PCOS, yours was very physical and mine's is more of a psychological thing. But I also felt fantastic all through pregnancy because I didn't have a cycle. And when I was breastfeeding as well. So I got like 3 years all in all of not feeling terrible. And that kind of was part of what prolonged my diagnosis as well, I guess. But essentially what I'm telling you all this for is that, you could be looking at girls who are bisexual, have all this stuff going on around them at school, all of these kind of confusing messages going around. They maybe have a condition like premenstrual dysphoria. Like yourself, I was put on the pill at 14 to treat acne. I had really bad skin as a teenager. And, that probably could have been fixed with diet or just growing out of it eventually, but no, I was put on a pill that interfered with my menstrual cycle. Back in the 90s, nobody thought to question their doctors. Nobody challenged anything. You just do what the doctor tells you because that must be the best thing for you, and so essentially these dysmorphia and these horrible feelings about their body that these young girls are experiencing could be made 1,000 times worse by injecting them with shit, giving them more synthetic hormones for their poor little brains to process. We're killing children. I'm sorry to be so dramatic.
We're shortening their lives. We are shortening their lives drastically. And then we're feeding, a lot of them are, like they're being told that they will, take their own life if they don't get this thing that is shortening their lives and is sterilizing them. Like the Lupron and stuff, like that's sterilizing children. That stops their all of their development, right? Like when you are stopping their development, you are stopping their puberty. You're stopping all the growth that they're gonna have with their bones, their entire body. Like what happens to us during puberty, like, women, that's when we grow our breasts and our milk ducts, like that's why we can breastfeed, is because our milk ducts develop during our puberty, and
bone development and everything else. I mean, literally every aspect of our development is affected by those hormones. We need them. There's a reason they're there. I mentioned this before, but like the human machine is just so amazingly crafted. Like, don't fuck with it.
It's amazing. Our bodies are really amazing.
Fuck with it.
That's it. If we're good to our bodies and take care of mind, body, and spiritual or whatever, then there's a lot of things that we can do for ourselves that don't require the input from doctors, right? And I don't mean to go all woo-woo. Thank God for modern medicine, thank God for it.
Oh no, I'm totally woo-woo. I go woo-woo first. Then if I have to go like mainstream doctor, then I will. Like I'm like, no. I'm all woo-woo and herbs and
love a bit of herbalism.
yes. Yeah. I don't know how many people I tell, like, oh my gosh, if you get sick or you're feeling sick, like you need sambucol, you need it's elderberries. You know what I mean? Like that's like, it's a really basic thing. Elderberries, they're such a huge immune booster for like anything. Like please just eat elderberries. Get elderberry syrup or gummies or whatever herb, however you can get it. Like just get that. If you don't take any other advice from me, take that.
Elderberries, got it. I'm the same. I'm always looking for an alternative first, and I'll only kind of turn to medicine when it's really, really necessary. But most people are not built that way. Most people are conditioned to just read the medical advice, read the science, And it's like, but not every, but we are actually natural organic beings. We're not robots. So the mechanics of it.
Our DNA is closest to mushrooms.
Yeah.
We are 60%. Like, so people, people will say like, oh, well, bananas and stuff. No, but actually mushrooms is like the highest thing. And mushrooms are not even from this planet. You have to remember that. They're a spore and they're not from here. So we're aliens on this planet. Like that just solves the whole, that just solves
Oh,
it
come
all.
on. Oh, come on. We need to do another episode that is just dedicated to the amazing herbs and plants.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I know we should do some women's empowerment like episodes and stuff and like just talk about women's issues. I feel like that's you know what I mean? Like we should make that like a regular thing, like where we like get together like, like once a month or something and just like do something like, just talk about the women's issues, like the real, like the things that we go through, like how our periods were, how our birthing was, or how our, you know what I mean? Like there's just certain things as a woman that we can really talk about from like all the different aspects of womanhood, you know what I mean? From like our younger years into like, I'm 43. So like I'm getting closer to like where I'm pre-menopausal, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, yeah, it's definitely different than how it was when I was younger, when I was really dealing with the PCOS like heavily. And you know what I mean? Like it's really, I think that women aren't talking about these issues enough. You know what I mean? Like we're always kind of like shuttered into like, oh, don't talk about your period, or you know what I mean? Like, oh, it's all hush hush, and like, and I think it also comes from like probably our upbringing too. You know what I mean? My mom didn't really like talk about sex or talk about the, you know what I mean? Like all the ins and outs of things. Like I didn't learn it all from her.
Yeah, same. It's not even like my mother was prudish. I think it was just our era. We figured everything out. In the UK, there was these magazines. One was called Sugar and the other one was called More, right? Oh, and there was Shout as well. There was a few. Oh, I'm just 17. I'm thinking of all these magazines now. I've gone back to being like 13 years old. But this is where you learned everything, in the problem page.
Yes,
there'd be like a little 2-page spread about how to use a tampon and all this stuff. And so that's where I got all my education. I never had these conversations with my mother, but because of what's happened to me with my health, I don't have daughters, I have sons, but I'm determined that young women will talk about their periods, talk about all of these not insignificant things that are happening to their body, and we should be honoring that. Women should be allowed to listen to their body, honor when you're more fatigued at a certain point in your cycle. You should be able to rest. You should be able to isolate yourself if you're feeling irritable, because it's not you, you're not crazy. It's your body is telling you, listen to me, do what I'm asking you to do, right? Your body is screaming at you always, telling you exactly what to do, and we are so conditioned to completely ignore that. And fight against it, because if a woman isn't achieving, if she isn't ticking all the boxes, if she isn't showing up for work on time, if she blah 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 blah, like there's just a lot that we have to.
There is so much more that we have to deal with, especially like with our cycles.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to somebody in a spaces yesterday, and I was like, and she was just feeling very like raw, and you know what I mean. I'm like, are you like close to your period, or like where are you at on your cycle? And like, she must have disconnected.
Lost the signal.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll pop right back on.
Yeah.
But like, I asked her, I'm like, where are you at in your cycle right now? And like, it's something that you probably couldn't like. If a man had said it to her.
I know, right?
Imagine, like,
oh, man,
like,
it used to drive me nuts when my mom was like, are you on your period? I'm like, motherfucker, my feelings are still real. Like, like, don't ask me that.
But she was like, no, I'm ovulating. She was like, I'm ovulating. I'm like, oh yeah, you just need to get like laid then. Like that's and there was no like pregnancy thing involved. Like she's, female lesbian. So like, no worries there.
I always had, I don't have my period anymore. I'm 49. I always had from jump the worst cramps. I'm talking biblical. I should have been hospitalized. I should have never had to like be out trying to catch the bus and work all day and then take the bus home. Like how I fucking did that. Like I should have 3 gold medals, maybe 20, I don't know, but like the shit that we go through that no one gives two fucks about. But I always made sure at my jobs, I'm like, look, I don't know what to tell you, but I can't function, so I'm going to disappear. I'm going to go find a dark hole to go lay down in, and I'll be back when I can. And I can't go home. They're like, do you need to go home? I'm like, I can't get myself there. That's how much pain I'm in. Like, I can't get home unless you're going to take me there. But like, I will not be at my desk working for you for the next however until these fucking cramps go away. And then, you know, I was taking insane amounts of Motrin and ibuprofen, all those things. Come to find out, I didn't know this until just a couple years ago. Do you know that acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Advil, doesn't work on some people? I did not know that. And I was taking like way more than I should have because it wasn't fucking working. So I was just like,
oh my gosh.
Meanwhile, if I had just taken something else, which I ended up finding out years later, Aleve works. It's something else. It's a completely different, or naproxen sodium works. It's a different thing.
Yeah, that's
but
like
holy
more
shit,
than
that would have been information
NSAID
that someone could
family.
have given me. Yeah. But yeah, so people, if you have pain and Advil doesn't seem to work, well, it just doesn't work for some people. So take
That's
something
crazy.
else.
Yeah, that's oh my gosh, I know.
I'm talking about a lifetime of not knowing that and just being like, why am I having to take so many pills and it still hurts so bad? Like,
that's crazy. Yeah, I never even.
yeah,
I
didn't
you know,
know that
I
either.
didn't even question it. You know what I mean? Because I never came across anybody who it didn't work for.
Yeah, that should be
There's
like common
probably,
knowledge. Yeah,
it should be, absolutely.
you know, it works really well. I'm sure you know about kratom then, if you're into all the herbs.
Oh yeah. My partner takes the kratom like every day.
That works really well for cramps.
Does it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he loves that stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty geed. But yeah, I like your idea of talking about women things. That something, I had a miscarriage many years ago, and that I realized when that was happening to me, like, oh, okay, we need to change the culture on this, because who the fuck am I supposed to talk to about this? Because you don't talk about this. You know?
I've had double digit of miscarriages.
Oh, it's the worst.
It is absolutely the worst. And I mean, I remember there were times when I had them and, you know, I got left with my, you know, my 2-year-old daughter, you know, like, and I'm just like, I'm, you know, going through this, and her dad just like, you know, just was not there for me. Like, and I remember just being like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Like, it's horrible to go through. It's horrible to go, like, you know, and then to be left with a little baby I was like just floored. Like that happened.
There are so many awful scenarios that can happen, and you just have to be like, I'm having my miscarriage while also doing this. And again, nobody gives a fuck, because women are supposed to be able to do it all.
I know, like, we're supposed to just have somehow like this, you know, like just keep going, even if we're in pain, even if, you know, like right before like I get my period, like I'll get really, really tired, and you know, I'll have I've always had a lot of back issues with mine, like always cramps and back issues, like it's just always been bad. But like you're supposed to just suck it up through it, like, you know, and that's it.
Yeah. So my miscarriage, it's a crazy story, and I don't want to get dragged by people for the situation I was in. But when I got pregnant, I had just quit my job, and I didn't know I was pregnant till like the day after I gave my notice. It was a real bad situation. So I had to go on Medi-Cal, which is in California. It's like, you know, the Medicare, like what old people do. But when you're broke, you can also go on it. So because I was pregnant, I qualified. So then, but I have the miscarriage, and I happened to have an appointment at the Social Security office or wherever the fuck it was. This was several years ago, so I don't remember exactly, but I had been sent home from the hospital. My dad was with me because my husband had to work. So yeah, my husband wasn't there for me at all during my miscarriage. It was pretty terrible, but he had to work. My dad's sitting with me, and this guy is across from me who English is his second language, and that's fine, but a little frustrating when you're like in the middle of having a miscarriage and the communication isn't going so well, and you're also humiliated because your dad's sitting right there and he knows you're having a miscarriage, and the guy keeps asking you, well, what day did you have the miscarriage? And you're repeating over and over, I'm having it right now. Like,
Oh,
as I'm talking to you, I'm having like should I fucking pull my, like, how much more graphic should I get in front of my dad sitting here? Like, I'm having my miscarriage right now. So can
yeah.
you like hurry this the fuck up, and can you figure out how to check whatever the fucking box that is?
That's crazy. That's so crazy.
And you can't cancel those appointments because they're months in the making. There's no one on the phone. It's a whole, you know, everything that any government, anything is meant to completely mortify and humiliate and depress you. I mean, everything about it is meant to be super difficult. You can't reschedule those appointments. You have to keep it, even if you're having a fucking miscarriage. So that's my miscarriage story. There's more, but that's the most horrifying part.
Yeah, I had to have the DNC done twice actually. And one time I had to have it done on my birthday. Like it was like the worst thing ever. And like I remember like so in Connecticut, like the first one that I had, they didn't like they didn't put you under at all for it. Like they just like kind of like gave you something to calm you down, but you were completely aware of it. And oh my gosh, that was horrific. But thankfully the second time it was done at the hospital, and like they put me out and did everything, because like, oh my gosh, it's so traumatizing to have a miscarriage of like when you want to have the pregnancy. You know what I mean? Like that's devastating. Like when
it's
you
so devastating.
want to have that baby, you know what I mean? Like, and you think about it that way, and it happens, you know, it's really hard. And it's something that women don't talk about. They really don't. Like, I remember after I had mine, I was just like, I just didn't like know who to talk to, and then like people would just not know what to say to me, you know.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I was at the hospital for the beginning of it until they released me in the ER, and not one person that I interacted, and not a nice hospital in Hollywood, like the cheap one you go to when you're on Medi-Cal, like, but still the people that work there were trained like everyone else. Not one person like said condolences or gave me a look or grabbed my hand, or no one said any, it was like it wasn't fucking happening. Like no bedside manner, just nothing. And then because it was so early, it was before I had told anyone I was pregnant. So what, my coming out, that I'm going to call my friends and be like, oh, by the way, be here for me, even though I didn't fucking tell you I was pregnant. Like just the whole, yeah.
It's hard. Yeah. Yeah. I was far enough along that we had told people. So it was like, you know, it was shocking. You know, it's like, wait a minute, like you just don't believe it. Like you just don't, like, you know, like, no, that can't be true. This can't be happening. You know, it's hard. It's really hard, especially when you don't have the support network around, you know.
No, the worst. Yeah, I posted about it on my Facebook, and a lot of people came forward and were like, I'm so glad you said something, because, and then there was I went through this at this time, and I did everyone had a story. Painful. When I wonder what happened to Kay.
I know.
Kay Carnelian. Let me see if she messaged on Twitter or anything.
Okay.
Let's see.
I know. I'm like, did she like just lose internet or something?
Probably. Oh, her Wi-Fi dropped.
She can click the link and come back if it's still. Yeah, I think it would be awesome though to do some kind of women's group or something like that, like where we just talk about like we talk about like just the heavy issues, you know what I mean? Like talk about how that feels, and you know, like we're not giving medical advice or anything, but this is like our experience, and you know, it might help other people. It might help somebody
to not
else.
feel alone. A lot of times to hear like the most cringy or the most painful or the most odd, like I bet you there's lots of people who have a story where they're sitting in the fucking Social Security office feeling humiliated in the middle of a miscarriage. I bet you that's happened more than once, you know.
Absolutely.
Because again, you can't cancel those appointments.
No.
Everything's so preposterous, you have to laugh. And then, these fucking crazy non-reality people want to appropriate that experience as well and fetishize it. They think that, there's probably some sicko that's going to listen to this and be like, oh my God, that's so hot. I'm going to fantasize about being across from some fucking clerk in office while I'm having my massage.
Yeah, well, I mean, like there's like the guys that are like, I want to have a uterus transplant so that
What is that?
Then I can have
an abortion.
The first abortion. Like that's not a pleasant experience. That's like a privileged thing that we like, you know what I mean? Like it's not pleasant. Why would you want that? And like, in order for that to happen, they would actually have to surgically intervene because you do not have the parts. You know what I mean? Even if you could put a uterus in there, like what would you even do with it?
Where the whole thing's, they're just insane. And then that particular person and that particular desire, I mean, it just seems so fake. But then there's the new one today with the guy who wants to put the tampon and all the coconut oil he needs to use because he doesn't want to rip it out and have this on it. Like, what are you using tampons for, you fucking lunatic? And you know what they're using them for? For this response from women like us. And it's a troll, God, it's a fucking troll parade. I think a lot of it's not real, man. Are these people for real?
Sometimes it's really hard. It's like, right? I have another one I'm going to show you. I have another video for you. I don't know if this is real. I really don't. I have a hard time.
It's hard to tell anymore.
So this is a mom, and I'm thinking this is I think this is mom. And I came across this. I don't know if you saw this.
Oh, I haven't seen it. I scrolled past it today. So yeah, I didn't click it.
So it says absolutely ridiculous. He is human. So if he's a cat, do you take him to the vet? The world's gone bloody mad. So she's referencing this woman's child and whether they're a cat or not going to the vet. Because people are identifying as animals now. Like this is happening. Yeah. So like I don't know if this is I don't know if this is real or not. Please.
I swear to God, I want to fucking slap the shit out of all these parents that have these entitled kids. I'm a ZZM bird. No, you're fucking not. You're not that special. You're a speck of dust out in outer space, and you take a shit every day. Stop with your bullshit. Anyway, please.
It's fucking maddening.
It's just.
My son does identify as a cat, but I cannot take him to a vet. Because I tried that, and the veterinarian told me that because he has human anatomy, that he does not know how to work on him or diagnose him with anything, and he legally cannot. So, while I do think that is a form of discrimination, because my son, if he says he's a cat, he is a cat, and he needs to be treated like that, like one, But I'm not going to press charges because I know that he could lose his license if he did work on my son. So I'm not gonna try to sue him or anything. So don't worry. But this is something that I want to raise awareness on because I do think that people that identify as an animal should be able to go to the vet. That's the medical attention that they're wanting. And so I really do appreciate you asking this question. I think it's an important topic that we discuss because if we don't, we're never going to make progress, and these people that identify as cats are going to have to continue going to human doctors, and I just don't think that that's fair.
Well, I mean, just there's no fucking way that's real. But if it's not real, she's a decent actor, I gotta say, because she's really pulling it off. And if it is real, she shouldn't have a child. How come I had a miscarriage and she has a fucking child? tell me who upstairs thought that was a good idea. Like, so many people should not have procreated.
I know. And I'm like, either she's really, either this is like she's really good at this or we are really just that far gone. Either way, I'm just like, what is happening?
I mean, the fact that we don't know is it's not a reflection of us. It's a reflection of where the fuck we are right now, and that's not a good place.
It's so fucked up where we are right now. Like,
I have to tell you. So, Kay already knows this, so she doesn't have to hear it now anyways, because she already heard it before. But so my podcast was on hiatus for a while because I was mostly just like, I really wasn't, I really prefer just talking to the camera myself about like my bullshit. I really love what Kay and I are doing because we have a topic. But anyway, because that's what I was doing, I was like, I really can't do this anymore. My audience isn't growing. I don't really know what the point is. I don't know if I'm going to get back to stand up. So I don't know if I'll be able to grow the audience anyway. I put it to rest while I was finishing up school. The reason I brought it back was specifically because I started learning about all this nonsense, this crazy, crazy nonsense. And I realized that no one in my life knows anything about it, because I can see on Facebook that no one fucking knows anything about it. And all my friends are West Coast lefties. Not every single one, but for the most part, I'm from San Francisco. I live in LA. That's just mostly what I'm dealing with is liberal friends and family. And so I wanted to make the show for them. And no one seems to give a fuck. Like, I post my episodes on my Facebook and no one cared. If I had a friend that had their own show, like, don't most people be like, my friend is on TV? Well, like, I have my own show and like no one cares. No one that I've made it for. My lefty friends that are parents whose kids are in school being indoctrinated, who have no idea, they won't click. They don't know what I'm saying, and I'm doing this for them. I don't know how to make them look. And in addition to that, Facebook, when you post outside links from like YouTube or Spotify or whatever, they hush that because they want you to buy ads. So Facebook is also suppressing. They won't let anyone. I put a regular post and was like, hey, you guys, I started making a show and I'm doing it for you and I'm not getting much engagement. I'm just curious. Can you see this post? And all these people are like, yeah, I had no idea. I see this post. And I'm like, so like Facebook is actively not letting people see when I post my podcast, which then I'm trying to share with those specific people about this specific topic that they know nothing about, because as you know, there's a media blackout on the left with this issue.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's making me want to rip all what's left of my hair out.
Right. Right.
And I can't go to my Facebook and be like, you guys, watch my fucking podcast. Like, like, what can I do?
There has to be some kind of hook or some kind of way that you can involve them into coming cross-platform to watch it.
Yeah.
So maybe if we do the women's podcast, we could stream it to you know what I mean? Like you could do clips there, and you know what I mean? Like maybe if you put clips on, you know what I mean? Like
there's just more crafty ways. I think I have to do direct. I can't go through my YouTube. I can't post it to YouTube and then put a link. I can't do things like that because it just gets completely suppressed. But okay, so you have a podcast. You have friends and family. Do any of them watch it? Just curious.
I don't know that it's mostly an online audience that I've built. Not really I mean, friends of mine do watch it, but I don't think that many of them are just regular engulfed, you know what I mean, in the same way that the online community is.
I guess the online people, they're looking for podcasts and things like that. It is a different thing. There's podcast people that are on Twitter, and then there's non-podcast people that are not on Twitter. Is that what you?
Yeah.
Isn't that so interesting?
It is. It's really interesting. And I feel like people that are on Twitter are different than the people that primarily are on Facebook or Instagram too. There's different and there's like it's a weird, like when I've gone back to like Facebook after being on Twitter for the last few years,
Mhm.
like it's different there. The way people communicate is different. Like it's just like a whole new ball game. And like I kind of like left that whole like all of my Facebook behind, and I started Twitter like
Yeah.
all new. So like
Yeah.
everybody like they don't really cross a lot. Like there's like a whole different like demographic of people that like I really more so know in real life than the people on my Twitter that are mostly just like online community.
Right.
Like,
I think I'm going to have to let the Facebook thing go. But it's such a strange phenomenon to me, because I would at least like be curious, be like, oh, what are they doing? But like, no.
that's
Where how
weird.
did you start your show? How and why did you start your show, and how long have you been doing it?
I think it's like what is it? A year and a half, Steve? Something like that. Steve, he's not paying attention to me.
He's asleep.
He's
He's
got
bored.
headphones in.
He's like, they
Oh,
started talking about their periods, and I had to go.
I know, right? Well, I was kind of like in like the lefty kind of circles of things, but I was like, and I was paying attention to a bunch of podcasts, but there was like a bunch of nuance that like wasn't being brought to conversations. And I'm just like, no, you're getting that wrong. Like, and I was just like, no, like I was just noticing a lot of things. And like, I ended up just feeling like compelled, like I had to just like, not only like put my voice out there, but also find the people in our community that like maybe don't have a big following, that don't have a podcast. And I bring a lot of people from the community on, and we just like chill and have like really great conversations. And so
Yeah.
like I mean like that's just kind of like where it started for me. It was just like I felt like there was a perspective that was missing from like, you know, like I'm more of a lefty, but like I'm not really like I'm like kind of like politically homeless. I feel like, you
Same.
know what I mean? I'm definitely not in the right, and I'm definitely not in the extreme left. Like I'm
Right.
just like, but I'm not a centrist, like, you know, like a Biden centrist. I'm just kind of like on the other side. I feel like it's a circle, and I'm like, I'm over here where everybody else is on there
Yes.
somewhere, you know? And
Many
so,
of us are floating around.
yeah, like I'm just kind of like I don't really fit into any of these boxes or categories, and I just never have my whole life. I've always just kind of like forged my own path in life. So like I'm
love
like the
it.
one that's not going with the crowd. I'm the one that's like the fuck are you guys doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because when I first started my podcast, I wasn't on Twitter, so I didn't have connections with anyone, and I was like, how do I even know which microphone to buy? And you Google things, but there's like, you know, there's people telling you at this level, and I'm like, no, dude, I'm like down at this level. Anyway, there was no one, but now that I'm on Twitter and I've been back for a while, I made so many awesome connections with people, and I really love being there now. And when I brought the show back, it's been all guests, which I've been enjoying quite a bit. The whole
Yeah,
different thing. But like I
fun.
said, I feel like you said, you noticed there was something missing, and I noticed amongst my crew there definitely something missing. I felt compelled, like. Especially because, you know, I just got out of school and I'm much, much older. So people went to school years ago. They don't understand. It's different now. They are indoctrinating these fucking kids because I was just there. They try to do it to me, but I'm a grown ass woman. So I noticed. But these kids aren't going to notice. They don't know anything. They have nothing to compare it to. Horrifying.
God. I know I got completely when it really hit me with everything was especially during like Pride this year in the United States. So like June 2023. It really hit me because I had people that knew me that like, you know, had you know, like had gotten to know me and like, you know, had my number and like, you know, direct communication with me and like, you know, and had many conversations with me and knew like I was just like I'm not a hateful person, started calling me all the names. And I'm just like, what? Like, where is this even coming from? Like what now you think I'm suddenly like a hateful person and you're questioning whether or not like whether I agree with like the pride flag being in school? Like, of course I don't. Like I don't like I'm part of that community and like I don't like it. A lot of us don't like it. That's sexuality. Like that should be far removed from elementary school.
Yeah.
And that's where it kind of like hit me really bad was when people started coming at me for saying that. And then for me, when they put out like, what was it? Glamour magazine or something. I think it was in the UK. They did like women of like, it was a
Right.
a pregnant person that was obviously a female because only females get pregnant. But they had they presented them on a women's magazine and called them a man. And I'm like, this is not okay. And I'm like, I said, what did I say? Only females can get pregnant or something like that. Like, how is this controversial? And I got hated on. I mean, it was like all these people that were like, in the lefty circles. I was just like, what the fuck? Like, what? I'm not transphobic. And then I had somebody come to me and tell me that they were non-binary, but they had female reproductive organs, and that when they identified as non-binary, that they would be non-binary. Their organs were non-binary as well. Yeah, like things like that. And I was just like, I don't understand this. And like they ended up like, being like, oh, anyone who's following Lucky Burrito on Twitter, like, trying to get me canceled. And then other people that knew me jumped on the bandwagon. And I was just like,
that's really hurtful.
What?
It's like, can you fucking pretend like we've met? Would you think my whole personality is different? Listen to what I'm saying and stop imposing your bullshit and adding that onto it. People can't seem to do that.
It was absolutely crazy. And around that time I had Buck Angel come on the show. It was like mid, Pride Month, like smack dab in the middle of like all of that. And me kind of like peaking at the same time to like everything and like really, really seeing how cultish everything is and how much of an echo chamber like everybody's in when it even came to that specific topic. Like I already knew that the left was in an echo chamber. Like it's bad. It's really bad. I mean, oh man. And until you're on the outside of it looking in, you don't even realize
this is what
how
happens
bad it is.
When I go to visit the Facebook to post the podcast that no one's looking at, the entire feed, because I'll scroll, see what people are up to, is every single human being that I know and, loved at some point or still have, friendship, whatever. But these people that are in my life, every single post, drag's not a crime. Like, dude, can you get out of your bubble to find out what people are actually bitching about? Because they're not bitching about drag. Nobody thinks drag is a fucking crime, you fucking retards. But you don't even know what people are mad at because you get the hook and you just go with the hook without even checking. Do people even look at the other news at night? I watch all of it. Anyway, it makes me nuts. I'm just like, it's about people doing it in front of kids and kids doing it in front of adults and adults throwing money at them like they're strippers. The whole thing's fucking weird and it's really happening.
It is. It's really absolutely freaking bizarre. Like I've helped put drag king shows on and like spent a lot of time at drag shows. If a kid was there, I would be like, what the fuck is going on? Like that's just not okay. It's just not okay.
Dude,
like
it's not.
Like I wouldn't feel comfortable. You know what I mean? It's a fun experience. It's an adult entertainment.
Yeah. And it's
not like,
for kids.
Are they going to start taking their kids to strip clubs next? I mean, like, what's happening here?
It doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for it. There's so many other kinds of entertainment. I mean, and this is the thing. All of the grooming that's been done over the years, and I've mentioned this before on my show, but they started with Orange is the New Black and Laverne Cox, who None of us bat an eye. I love that show. You're watching it. She's a sweet character. You're like, oh, it's fine. You don't think for 2 seconds, hey, that's a dude and he could beat them all up and rape them because of the character. That was a very specific, they didn't choose a fucking sex offender to be in there and play that character. Now, did they? Not on
Nope.
any episode. Not on any episode did they ever do that. I wonder why. Grooming. And then this is what I got.
Yeah, they're getting us prepared for it.
Like, I don't hate drag, okay? Like, I bought this in the year it came out.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I used to be going to the clubs, man. Come on. And I still have it. So I don't want to hear no shit. I'm not a bigot or a hater. I don't, nothing. You know? Just like you. I want to live in fucking reality. But then RuPaul had a show like a year or two ago. Did you watch it? It was what the fuck was it called? But she went across the country in an RV with a child doing drag, and I watched it and loved it and was like, oh, this is so cute. Dude, open your goddamn brain. But the grooming is so good. You don't know
it is, and like in Hollywood especially, like, I mean, like the scripts, you know, we know that script ideas come from the government for, you know what I mean?
The
like
businesses, the things they want to sell, yeah, I know. It's crazy.
And we know it. And that's what's crazy, is that we know it and we acknowledge it, and then we just continue to digest it. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, like Orange is the New Black is like a really, really good example. Like, they kind of like put that right in under the radar. Like, they just, you know, no biggie, you know, just a.
And none of us ever were like, huh, I know I wasn't.
Because the character wasn't
mind.
The character wasn't a threat.
Yeah. And I hadn't heard of that, someone being a threat in there yet. Now I hear about it all the time, but you still don't hear about it on the news. Maybe on Fox, maybe, but definitely not on NBC. Not on ABC neither. Not on.
Oh yeah, I know
They don't talk about any of it anywhere. They didn't. Did you know when that whole Riley Gaines, Leah Thomas thing was going down? Did you know in the beginning that Leah Thomas still had a penis? Because I didn't. They conveniently left that out of the news.
I wasn't even like really sure about what was happening. That's crazy though. The next clips I have are about that. It's about these young girls. I don't know if you saw this. They went to a Save Women's sports event in Texas.
Yeah.
So I have 2 video clips of how the people reacted to children that were at these events. Like, these are children walking by, and I was really shocked at how they behaved to the children, you know, to have males and female sports. Like, they're advocate. It's so telling. All right, I'll play this real quick. So those young girls are getting a police escort while they're going to a Save Women's like sports event. That's what's happening. The trans rights activists are just like that. How intimidating. You know, just because they want to.
What are they hoping to gain by fucking shouting at children? Like, be quiet until they get by and get back to shouting at adults or whatever. But like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, like, why are you intimidating children like that? Like, why would you do that?
These people are all deranged. And I know something I was going to say earlier. This whole thing, especially that dude with the Oompa Loompa haircut, I mean, it's such an escape from adulthood. I don't want to grow up. Things aren't working out for me. Let me pick this thing to explain why I can't grow up and haven't grown up, and see if I can somehow get away with this. I mean, that dude knows he's not a lesbian, but he also knows that he's unfortunate looking and that, you know, he's a little strange and that no one wants to fuck him. Like he knows that much, but he doesn't know enough to ask for help with that. He's being fed some bullshit and he's like, well, let me try this. And he doesn't have one real friend, not one real friend to tell him, hey, bro, like,
yeah, no one, they're not being
know.
honest with him. Like that's the thing, is that they're lying. And I think that that's cruel. I think it's really cruel. So I have a
really
clip
sad. Yeah.
of this same thing that happened, but this is from their perspective, like walking, and this is how they saw it. So imagine being a little girl and going through this. Like, that would be really super scary. Can you imagine like that? How traumatizing?
No.
Yeah.
There's blood on your hands.
I knew it. I was going to say, I thought I heard someone say there's blood on your hands earlier today. And this is the clip. There's blood on your hand, on those little girls' hands. Really?
All these things were yelled at the kids. Yeah. I mean, look at the people like in a full-on mask. Like,
it's fucking weird. They're, of course, yeah, they're all weird. And only people with arrested development mentally would stand there and shout into children's faces like that while looking like weirdos. Like, what's with the pink mat? Like, what are you doing? If I guess maybe they don't want their work to see how despicable they're acting.
Yeah, I don't know.
You have blood on your hands, little 7-year-old blonde girl.
All because they were trying to go to an event to save women's sports, to save female sports.
Right.
Because there is inherent differences in size with males to females. Like, you look at us biologically as a species, we are the farthest apart from each other when it comes to things. Like, I was saying to I had a transsexual on Charlotte, you might know from Twitter. And we were talking, I was like, well, what about the medical aspect of this? Like, when you go to a doctor or a hospital, like, you know, like, and she was saying like, yeah, she has to like go through a whole lot of things to kind of like explain it. But then there's not codes for people that are transsexual in the medical field. There's not code for detransitioners either. So like
that needs to be changed. That's deliberate. It's deliberate because then it makes it harder to sue. It makes it harder to collect. Well, the main thing is it makes it impossible to collect data.
Yeah. And
that shouldn't even be legal. If you are doing a medical procedure, it needs to have a fucking code. Those codes exist for a reason. Why all of a sudden, we can just put whatever we want? No, you can't. If there isn't something that matches this, you need to make it up.
Code for everything. They code everything in the medical industry. So like, to not have a code, I mean, that seems like anti-trans to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. That seems like, you know, the medical industry is definitely anti-trans. They are
trying to erase them, make them invisible. Data, for people who don't understand, I mean, data is literally what makes the world go around. It's how we get everything done, from traffic to medicine, literally everything. It's quite fascinating, actually, and young people should get into that field because there's good money in it. But it's really, really important. It's how we understand where to send money and resources. It's how we keep track of things. When you go to the doctor and the doctor's filling out all those little things, those are the codes for people who don't know. And they're there for a reason. So it's a record of what's happening with your body. And it should be accurate. It should be accurate.
And
Or-
also another thing, like if somebody has the surgeries and they present as the opposite gender, I think that they should almost have to have like a medical alert bracelet or something along those lines, because in an emergency, how are they going to know? They're not necessarily going to check every body part of you. Say it was like Buck Angel or something, you know what I mean? And they or Blair White, like just two people that are very, like prominent. You can find them anywhere, and they really present as the opposite gender very thoroughly, except like
right.
they're what's the hidden bits. So when we think about this, if somebody that really presents as the opposite sex, like thoroughly, because with the breast implants, like they make it where it's really, like sometimes you would not be able to tell with surgeries and stuff. You can get to that point where, you really would at least be like, huh, you might go, well, but usually like they can do, if you have the money for it, you can
get a nice looking rack. Yeah. I've seen good work.
But
There's
yeah,
good work
I mean,
to be had.
so if that happens and you have a medical emergency and you're on cross-sex hormones, like that's you would think that you need a medical bracelet or something to identify that, because if they give you the wrong thing in an emergency situation, it could absolutely kill you, because our hearts are different than a male's heart, and that's just they're
Did you see?
Would be wrong. You know what I mean? All the medical screening and testing would be wrong.
They just did a procedure on someone who was 4 months pregnant, and they didn't know because they went in saying they were a man. So they didn't do the requisite. And even though they know it's not a man, for whatever fucking reason, every time you go to the doctor, they make you piss in a cup. Every time, if you're a woman, just to make sure you're not pregnant. They do it. It's standard. Doesn't matter how old, young, doesn't matter if you're fucking your husband or not. They don't care. They want your piss. They want to make sure so that stuff like this doesn't happen. Well, it happened. And now that baby is dead.
Oh my gosh.
How the fuck does that happen? And it's in the Daily Mail if you want to look it up later. But like, how the fuck? What doctor allows that to happen on their watch? I mean, hi, you're going to lose your license now. And like you said, they should have these bracelets, but if they don't, everyone, it's like with those annoying people. It's like pulling teeth, where you have to like you have to know the question that you don't know that you need to ask with this, because if people aren't going to come forward, you got to be asking things that you wouldn't know that you should even be asking, like, are you pregnant? Because
it's true. I mean, like, so and they shouldn't waste their time on somebody just because they present as a female. You know what I mean? That they would have to screen them for pregnancy. Like, that would be stupid.
Right.
You would be missing. You know what I mean? Like, so it seems like it's kind of like a disaster waiting to happen. Like, just because it hasn't.
The fact that you just brought that, I bet you that's fucking happening. I bet you they're taking dudes' pee for no goddamn reason. And I bet all the medical assistants are like, kill me now, because they just can't believe what they're dealing with. And then I bet we don't hear about it because, they won't tell us anything.
Well, I mean, how long before you're going to go in for an ultrasound and they're like, oh, well, I can't tell you what the sex of your baby is because I don't know until your baby decides, like, it's insane. You saw my little dog Leo. So he's a service dog, so he goes with me everywhere. He meets a lot of people, and I cannot tell you. I mean, like, how many times people will be like, "Oh, is he a boy or a girl?" And then they look under to check his genitalia. They check, they like look to see, oh, is he a boy or a girl? It's really obvious that like we don't have that problem with anywhere else. Like, no,
they are junk checkers.
Yeah,
they do though. Like, they want to know, like, oh, is it a boy? And that determines it just fine, right? It determines it with your animals just fine. We can sex our animals without a problem. But suddenly I'm in like Twitter land and people are telling me that men can have vaginas, and I'm like, no, they cannot. We are not going there. No, a biological man does not have a vagina. That's just no.
Not willing to let go of reality. Life is scary enough. You know, I mean, I get the idea you've tried some psychedelics in your life, right? Like, and you always want to hang on a little bit to reality. You don't want to just go all the way. I would like to be tethered, please.
Yeah.
I'm down for a little adventure, but I must be tethered to reality, please, for God's sake.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We perceive it.
Yeah, at least what we perceive as reality. Yes. Yeah.
That's what we perceive. Correct. Like, just this is my settings are all set for this. So can we just stay
We take some fine tuning it. We're going to be tripping all the time.
I know. I can't imagine being in such a reality where like the majority of the world has no comprehension or understanding. Like the majority of people do not comprehend or understand what a lot of these gender identities are and what they're talking about. I mean,
no,
like,
and they don't see how it affects them, and they don't see the dangers because they're not, you know, like we talked about, there's so many layers and there's too many things. They're just like, oh, well, these are just trans people trying to live their life. It's like, you don't understand. Wait till it affects you. Just wait.
I've had people that were like kind of critical of me, you know, being, you know, a biology realist, you know what I mean? Like, so believing in biology and all of that, they were critical of me talking about these issues. And then let me tell you, a very short couple weeks later, I've had people come back to me and been like, oh, yeah, I have like 2 kids in my life now that are affected by this. Like, oh, I someone else, you know what I mean, is affected by this. Like, it never, I'm never like surprised that I get a message anymore, like saying, oh, thanks for, you know, speaking up about this because I can't say it, but you can. And I appreciate you saying it.
Right.
You know, I'm
That's
not
kind
surprised by that anymore. Cause
Yeah, I'm hoping that the right people will hear all of everyone talking about this. Just it only takes one person to be like, wait, what? And then be like, oh my God, do you know? And then from one person to one person to one person.
well,
I
who was
I
that?
can't believe this. Can you believe this? I don't know. Do you follow Megan Kelly at all? I love Megan Kelly.
I watched some of her stuff. Yeah. I like,
Well,
not like a regular, but yeah.
she's peaked now. So I've been watching every time she has something about that on. But I can't believe that the rest of mainstream media, not including Fox and the people who have had detransitioners on and stuff, but the other mainstream media, how much longer can they keep this all a secret? Especially when people as big as her are peaked and just out there saying all the things we're saying, and she don't give a fuck. She's like not scared.
Well, Joy
great.
Reid, when after Joy Reid did some stuff about she went after Xlancic a couple of months ago. And like they're all like just like repeating exactly what the trans rights activists always say. Like on the surface, if you're not looking into this fully and you're not really going down all the rabbit holes, on the surface, we probably would sound like awful human beings. But once you have like really gone down the rabbit holes, that's when you really find like what's really happening. And there is so many freaking holes. It is a complex maze. I mean, from really like the money aspect of it, the doctors aspect of it, the fact that like all these major like pediatric organizations are behind it, the mass pressure campaign, the like canceling and like, oh my God. I mean, it is just.
And it's permeated everywhere, not just from K through 12, but all the way through college as well. I mean, it's just nonstop bombardment of you will accept this or else.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yep. There's even bonus holes.
Well, that's the silver lining of all this, really. I mean, at least there's bonus holes now. At least we're getting something out of it.
Oh my God, I know. Oh.
So have you personally like piqued someone? I piqued my own mother. She's like, I was on Twitter for 30 minutes yesterday and I was so mad. Like she keeps going down the rabbit hole. She can't believe what the hell.
I've helped people like online that I've known peak, and yeah, definitely a couple of like my neighbors in real life, and it's
really?
just and they're just like, what? Like they're just.
Well, now let me ask you this: for someone like your neighbor, is it like a slow burn of like, let me feed them this weird bit of information, and then next week I'll tell them this other horrifying thing, or like how much do they know, and like how long?
Well, one of them knows a little bit, and like their kids, like because they're like the same age as my daughter, like so the kids were aware, and the kids were like, "Oh yeah, mom," blah 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 blah. Like it just like randomly came up, and like she was just like, "Wait, what?" Like, and she was like, "What? What?" Like, it was really funny. And then the kids are like affirming what I'm saying, and they're like, "Oh yeah, and that guy that was in." Was it China or Japan that has the $20,000 dog costume made? And they started talking about that, and she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's true." And like the kids and I are like verifying like all this stuff, and she's just like I gotta check in on her. But my other neighbor, like, she actually has like, a transsexual person and, in her life, and has been around for, ever. And I know them too. And like, so I just like little by little was showing this stuff and like to her and like her grandmother, and like, oh man, what was it that I showed them? Oh my God. It was, I don't know if it was like the males that were pregnant or the males that were breastfeeding or something.
That sent my mom, the breastfeeding. Ooh.
Yeah, that got them like totally. They were just like, what? This cannot be real, and this and that. And like, I think that really piqued a lot of more people. I think the breastfeeding thing, because it's just it's not like they're faking something. It's not like they're faking a period or they're faking being a woman when they're not. Like they're actually physically doing something to harm that's causing harm to a baby. Like that's just
the fact that can even be a thing that's happening, and not only is it being supported by all the people you would complain to about this, but that it's gone on for more than one day. You would think that would have hit the internet. The FBI would have been like, whoa. I mean, like, whoa.
I know.
There's no manager to speak to. There's no organization. Like, because
Latte League is like,
they're into it. Those fuckers.
I breastfed for 2.5 years, like for my daughter. Like I fucking put that time into doing it. Like I watched what I ate. I didn't take fucking medications. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like everything. I had to be careful about everything. But these men that are having a side effect of female fucking hormones are like, oh, well, I feel affirmed. Let me have a baby suckle on my boob.
God damn. It's beyond depraved.
Peak, do you want to take this? She wants to know how what do we mean by being peaked?
I should probably Google the origination story for this, because I don't really know where it came from, but it's basically when you go from it's kind of like having the light bulb go on. Like you hear a certain amount of information, and then you realize like, oh fuck, I see the big picture here, and there are a lot of things going on here that are not innocent. It's not just, oh, here's a trans person having a hard time and let's all be compassionate. This is you realize that that's not what this is about.
Yeah, you're like at the top of the mountain looking down going, oh shit. And what am I standing on? Like I am, this is really happening. It's not just a reactionary thing. Like this is something this is dangerous. I need to pay attention to this, and there's no going back.
You can't unsee it. That's
Yeah, like
the
you just,
determining factor. You're
yeah,
no longer like, well, I mean, maybe I can. No,
yeah.
seen enough.
You're
You've
like,
seen too
fuck.
much.
There's an action that comes with it too. I think once you're peaked, there's like an action. Like there's, like you can't go back into that hole and just, you know what I mean? Like, some people will. They'll
It's
kind
all
of
gonna
like,
be fine.
yeah, like they'll be like, oh yeah, you guys are taking care of it. You know what I mean? Like they won't necessarily react to it. But I think a lot of people, when they really, it kind of enthralls people into activism too. I think sometimes, like when you either peak and like I think you could become active in the movement of making more people aware of it at the same time.
Sharing the things that you've learned that aren't out there, that for a fact your friends and family have never heard of. You want to start passing that information along, because they're not going to get it anywhere else unless they get on Twitter.
Yeah, it's a lot for people to like understand, and until sometimes it hits them in that really personal like level, they don't fully grasp it. But planting the little seeds and just putting the information out there and having the knowledge to back it up is so important.
Yeah, you have to have receipts. Absolutely. Yeah, my show notes are full of everything that I mention, because I'm not trying to come at this without my receipts. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I don't play that game, never have. I just wouldn't. It's not how my mind works, but yeah.
No, we're definitely like when we're putting stuff out, and it's really happening on Twitter. I notice like Twitter is like where, I mean, there is always spaces on this, like the transsexual unity, are like all the transsexual people are having to come out of the woodwork, and like the amount of time that I have to like explain to people that transsexuals are different than transgenders,
right?
And the differences between them, it's really interesting when people like start to see that. They start to go, oh, you see that like little, like they have a little light bulb moment, like, oh, okay, that's the difference. Yeah, because the transsexuals, the whole point is to be of the binary. It is to blend in with society. They're not the ones that have the all. Why does everyone have like blue hair and a septum piercing?
It's so weird. Such a weird uniform. And so it's so specific. It's not like they all just have piercings. It's that one. I don't know. It's weird. I think that was something that the influencers in the early day must have had it. And then everyone thought like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to look like in my
it's really
individuality.
It's like, I don't know. I don't even know like what really like brought this on. Like it's the weirdest movement, because I support transsexual people and people that have like an actual diagnosis and go and seek. Nobody that is a transsexual wants more transsexuals. That's the biggest difference. They don't want people to have the dysphoria that they have about their body.
Right.
Other transsexuals are not like, oh yeah, let me, like, let's celebrate this. It's not like you don't get a coming out story. There's one more clip I had. I almost forgot about this one.
Go for it. Yeah. Yeah. There's a definite, the whole, and Jordan Peterson talks about this, but the narcissism involved with the sort of the AGP level of this, the narcissism, because that's where all the abuse and the pushing of boundaries and all of that, which is completely different from a transsexual with dysphoria.
Yeah, because a transsexual isn't coming out in the same way. They're like, just like, we just want to kind of like blend into society, as where when we're talking about transgender, they're doing it in a completely different way. And this is how
there's an ideology involved, like a belief system that everyone has to engage with. Right.
Absolutely. And so this is what they do when they're coming out.
This is kind of scary because I only realized this a couple of days ago, and I've only come out to a few people. I'm a guy. I use he/they pronouns, and I'm gonna go by Theo. Yeah. I told my mom today, and I have to go home every day and be called my dead name and have she/her pronouns used every time I go home. And no one realizes how hurtful it is. It's like a slap in the face. And I dyed my hair last night so I could feel more masculine, and I was afraid I was going to get thrown out of the house. We love you, Theo. We love you.
It's like a big party.
Wouldn't it be easier for her to pick up like a tennis racket and like, you know, get in better shape so she could feel better about herself and then just go be a lesbian? Wouldn't that just be so much fucking easier? What is this? And who's that old lady standing there? Where are the adults in the room? Like, it's insane. There's nothing manly about this. That's a troubled young woman. And all of these idiots just applauding.
You're suddenly stunning and brave. Like it's really weird. And then if you decide that you are not transgender, and if you did transition and you detransition, I mean, you are just they treat you like I mean, they are the worst. The TRAs, they are the worst when somebody like leaves and desists from that. Like, it is atrocious how I've seen these people treated. Like,
oh yeah, they tell them to kill themselves. I've seen it myself. They tell them constantly, there's blood on your hands, you're trying to encourage other people to blah, 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 and you should kill yourself, and you were never trans in the first place. It's the classic cult tactics of shunning.
It's
Where
awful.
someone leaves the cult, then they are forever dead to everyone because they can't hear dissenting voices. That's why. And that's the other way that you know it's a cult.
Well, yeah, it reminds me of like, you know, of any of like the, you know, the Mormon churches, like the big, you know, the big polygamy cults there, or like, you know, you're in California, Scientology. I mean, it's huge.
It's exactly the same.
It's like, I feel like it's the same thing as Scientology. It's just that instead of paying the church, you're paying the doctors, which are the church.
Right. Yeah, that's a really great parallel. It's exactly the same. I mean, all cults pretty much have the same structure. And this one, it's just they're, you know, Laura Funk God Becker was asking the other day, like, oh, do you think it's a cult? And, you know, everyone's chiming in and stuff and talking about a charismatic leader is one of the requirements. And I said, well, yeah, you know, all the people with the money at the top, the Pritzkers, the Rothblatt, the whoever, all the other fucking people are. But then there's also the charismatic leaders, all the TikTok stars. I mean, that's charisma.
And the celebrities that have now
with their
transgender kids. Yeah. What's her face? That her child that, oh my God, what is her name?
Well, there's Charlize Theron. There's what the fuck is her name? Jamie Lee Curtis, and then Megan Fox.
Jamie Lee Curtis, like her is it as an adoptive child? I don't know if it's an adopted child or if it's her biological child.
I'm not sure. I thought that it was just her biological child, but yeah, her son Ruby, who's the biggest autogynephile you've ever seen.
Yeah, like
so into anime and just so not a woman trapped in a man's body by any stretch. And how is she ever going to backpedal? How are any of them ever going to backpedal now?
Well, so look at Jazz Jennings. I mean, like, it was on national television that they did this to a child. I mean, when we talk about the indoctrination and how it got kind of like swept right in, I mean, they made it normalized by making it like the American family on reality TV.
That's so sick. And that poor child's life is ruined now. just unhappy, obese, and what else? I mean, I know that she's not, he, whatever, isn't telling the truth. I mean, I see him up there defending what his family has done to him. It's sick.
Well,
That
it's
poor
like
guy, poor
it's like
kid.
Stockholm syndrome, and then
Yeah.
and then you have to admit that everything that you've done is a lie. Like you have to, I mean, like it's literally. I think that's why there's less detransitioners that we know about. I think there's more than what we know about, because I think that there's people that are continuing to live that lie also, that they're gonna be coming out later on.
Yeah.
Like they're just gonna be the ones that have like stuck it out thinking that they had to.
Yeah, because maybe they have nowhere to go. Maybe they have a glitter family, and what the fuck are they going to do if they get rid of that? It's going to be an interesting time.
Well, when you've cut off your family, like Jeffrey Marsh wants kids to cut your family that doesn't approve of you. So like he's pushing that, right? And he's like, "Oh yeah, come to my Patreon. Come talk to me there as a kid." Oh my gosh. When you've cut off your family, then what? Then you like that is like
Jeffrey Marsh isn't going to take you in. I mean, you can't live in his house unless, unless he's going to lock you up in the basement with the rest of them.
Oh, I got shit from people for like saying stuff about him, and I was just like, what are you talking about? Can you not see with your eyes and ears? Like he is creepy. Like completely creeps me out.
I couldn't be his friend even as an adult. I mean, and he's so just up in, in real life, he's like that too. Just like this fucking teeth.
Yeah. Like he invades your private space. Like he is like up in your bubble. Like,
always
like a close talker.
Yeah. Yeah. And
like
just so fucking angry.
I think he's projecting his own, like, like whatever happened to him with his family. I think that he's really projecting that onto everybody else, and it's kind of sad, because it's like, oh, I'm really sad for you that you lived such a a life and that you weren't able to get the proper therapy that you needed. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you look at it that way, I kind of have compassion for, but also that doesn't mean that you should be like grooming kids. Like,
no, I mean, I have compassion for everyone. I can wrap my mind around a lot of things, but like you said, you cannot have access. I am sorry about whatever is wrong with you.
Yeah.
I do have compassion for that. And I mean, like anything I can, but like stay away from other people though.
Yeah.
Don't hurt anyone or put your problems near other people. Just keep it to yourself. I'm so sorry, but keep it to yourself and get help. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wish that, people would address their mental health issues. I think that I think as a country, we have a lot of trauma, and we are not protecting children the way that we should be.
No.
And it's not a political stance to say that I want to keep kids safe. That is a human, it's a human right for them to be protected. They deserve to have adults that are going to stick up for them when things are going wrong, whether or not it's our business or not. Like, if we are seeing kids being harmed, then we need to speak up about kids being harmed. And like, that's just all there is to it. Like,
yeah, that's how I feel about it. We were asked yesterday, we did a show yesterday, and Aldo asked, are you guys concerned for yourselves about the things that you're saying and putting out there and backlash and whatnot? And we both said, yes, of course. And he's like, well, then where do you get the whatever it is to do this? And it's like, because it just has to be done. Like, it's kids.
Like, is there really a choice?
Not on my watch.
Is it optional? Like, I don't think it's optional for some of us.
Right. Once you know, it can't be.
Like, it's not optional. Like,
no.
It's like, oh, you want to silence me? Then that just means that I'm going to get louder. You realize, right? Like, that's going to be the effect that's going to happen. I'm not going to back down because you're trying to silence me. If you think that that's the case,
And the fact that this is the one thing that you can't talk about in our whole society all of a sudden, it's really telling how important it is to say something if you can. I'm running out of battery here and I need to
Oh
eat.
no. Well, we'll have to schedule another episode where we're gonna have Kay come back
Yes.
and do some more. And
Yeah, absolutely.
let's stay in touch and let's do some kind of like women's panel. Like maybe we can rotate it or something like that. Like
yeah.
like we can do it as a rotating thing, like your channel and then my channel or something like that. Like, like,
Sure.
and do like some real women talk. I think we need to have that. We need to have those conversations because they're not, as far as I know, they're not really being had.
No. And I mean, I think I probably want those conversations. You probably want those conversations.
I think it would be really, I think
them.
it would be healing. I think it would be really healing for all of us just to be able to talk about that stuff.
Yeah. I'm down. I like it.
Well, everybody, you guys should check out Mel's podcast. I love it. It's called I meant to play the little intro clip thing for it.
Thank you. Oh,
it's so funny. I love what it's based on and I love what you're doing and it's so important. And well, you know what? We'll just keep sharing it and putting it out there. And when we support each other, that's all of our boats rise at the same time. And that's the best way for it to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for reaching out and asking us to do this. It's been a lot of fun and I'm really happy to meet you. And yeah, we will definitely stay in touch and keep doing it.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a great night or day.
Whatever time it is.
I know.